It's the last keynote of the day. And what we're going to talk about is mastering the intangibles of communication to drive engaging conversations. So when you look at sales, basically if you look at this event, how this event came together was through speaking, through language. It's basically speaking and action. So our communication basically creates our world. So it's kind of a big deal to master communication, which happens to start with the intangibles, the stuff you can't touch, the stuff you can't see. And what I mean by that, I will explain in 30 minutes or 26 minutes and 40 seconds. But I have to be honest. It says mastering the intangibles of communication. So most of you probably heard of Bruce Lee. This is what he told you or said about mastering or mastery. I'm not afraid of somebody who knows 10,000 different kicks and punches. I'm afraid of a guy who practiced the same punch or kick 10,000 hours. And we have 30 minutes to master the intangibles of communications. So we don't have any time to lose. We need to go right now. So a big thing regarding communication, I could go on for 18 straight days. And I could cover different subjects. But I will cover one thing and one thing only. And it's a really big thing to get. So if you get this, it's my promise that it will impact your life and it will impact your sales performance drastically. And I know that's a lot to say. Well, one thing is important. I was driving, to this event. A client of mine called. We had a short conversation. And he asked me, "Are you in the car?" I said, "Yeah." "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, there is an event. And it's called Showtime. And I need to speak at the event." "Oh, good. What kind of people are there?" I said, "I think mainly sales and marketing executives and managers." And his response was, "Whoa, that's a tough crowd." I said, "Why?" "Well, these guys, they do a lot of trainings. Basically, they know it all." I said, "Okay, good to know." So, having that said, 2 weeks ago, I needed to speak at a really small event. 30 people were in the room. These were 30 business owners. They donated 100,000 euros to a charity we run. And they asked me, "If we do the donation, can you come out and speak to our group?" I said, "Fine, I will be there." But they didn't tell me this. I showed up at the event. It was in Belgium, in Antwerp. So I'm there in this castle, nice and fancy. I show up, they're eating. That's a big problem. So they were having dinner and I needed to speak for 1 hour. And a lot of you people do sales. So in communication, the first thing to get is people's attention. So I started the lecture like this. So, well, thank you all for being here. We have exactly 60 minutes. I drove here for 2 hours. I'm going to speak for 1 hour. Then I get back into my car, drive back home for 2 hours. To put it directly, to basically get this message across, I will spend 5 hours for you guys. 5 hours. And if you look at life, time is life. You get born here, you die here, and everything in between is time. So we don't have any time to lose. And I looked into the room, a couple of people stopped eating. So that's a good thing. So, what I told them was this. The big problem when it comes to communication is we don't pay attention. So I know a lot of you guys needed to be on a plane to be here. You had to take a flight. Was there at your flight a flight attendant who told you what to do in case of an emergency? Somebody had that? Good, okay. Did you notice how people were listening? They were not really listening, they were not paying attention. So, imagine this, same plane, same flight, same people, same flight attendants in front of the aisle, but now we're at 10,000 feet. We heard a loud noise, we experienced what we thought was turbulence, and the same flight attendant is in front of you. And the message is this. We're going to have to make an emergency landing. If you really pay close attention, your chances of survival will increase. Do you think people would listen differently? Yes. Good, okay. So, what people will do is pay attention. What they do is they leave the conversation they are having with themselves and be out their head paying attention. That's the thing. Because if you look at engaging conversations, it's being in communication with each other. Discuss with one another is another way to put it. Be in connection. So there needs to be a connection speaking with people. Sales is all about having a real, honest-to-God connection. And it's really, really hard to do. Because people are 99% of the time in a conversation with themselves. And it could be that you're having a conversation with yourself right now. So a lot of times it sounds like an easy job to sit in a room and just listen to a speaker. But actually it's pretty hard because you have to pay attention. And at that lecture 2 weeks ago in Antwerp, there was a tailor in the room. And I used 30 minutes of my whole hour to go over this one thing which we call listening. It's an art. Because most people are having a conversation with themselves, are really listening and paying attention to the voice in their head instead of being aware of what's going on in front of you. So I'm going over this for 30 minutes. This tailor comes to me after the lecture. He said, maybe I can learn a lot from you about communication and business, but you can learn a lot from me too regarding your clothes. You're wearing tennis shoes. That's like a no-go. I said, well, just notice that. And he's like, huh? Well, just notice what you're doing. I show up, didn't hold back, put my message across, basically helping you guys out. And now it's done, and you come up to me talking about my tennis shoes. That's exactly what I was talking about. You weren't paying attention. You were having a conversation with yourself about my tennis shoes. Whoa, that's true. I said, yeah, but the big thing to get is, where are you doing this in your life more often than just now? Oh my God, I think almost always. Well, good, just remember that. So, as you noticed, I don't use a keynote or whatever. You don't get handouts. There's nothing really to understand about what I'm saying. What it is there's something to really get, to experience. That's the only thing. Because if you start experiencing the voice in your head, that's like real wisdom. Intelligence would be, I went to this event, and now I know I have a voice in my head. That's intelligence. But wisdom is experiencing the voice in your head. So why is it important? Let me go over it. We have a piece of meat in our brain. It's called the reptile brain. And its function is the survival of the individual. So, for example, if you're driving in your car and it starts raining heavily and it's almost impossible to see, there's a lot of water on the road, and you have a conversation with yourself about, well, maybe it's better to slow down, grab the steering wheel firmly and just take it easy. Well, fine to pay attention. That's the whole purpose of the thing. If we would be here and we hear loud noises from the ceiling and we think it's going to crack and we have a conversation like, we better get the hell out of here. Well, listen to the voice in your head. It helps you survive. It's a good thing. But the second thing this voice in your head is doing, the reptile brain, is this. It's basically making sure of the survival of who the individual considers himself to be. So everything that can make an impact on how we operate in life, the results we produce. Let me put it really simple, and I did the same thing with the group two weeks ago in Antwerp. I said this, so I live in this really nice place, and like a couple of blocks away is living Fred. And Fred is 42 years old, a little bit overweight. He works at a grocery store, addicted to gaming, doesn't have a girlfriend, lives on his parents' attic. So, his mother is having a birthday party, and his uncle, who's really successful as an entrepreneur, shows up, and he's talking to Fred. Like, well, Fred, you know, you're 42 years old. Do you really want to live your life this way? Well, no. So his uncle borrowed him 50,000 euros to go to all different kind of seminars, walk on fire, all that stuff. And after the 50,000 euros invested, spending all that time on seminars, guess where Fred is living right now? Still at the attic of his parents. So why is that? It's really simple. There's a piece of Fred that doesn't want to change. So if you look at Fred's life, you would say, well, losing a little bit of weight would really help you out regarding health. If you would leave your job at the grocery store, start a business for yourself, make some money, well, that would be workable. And, you know, if you get a little bit more self-esteem and get a nice girlfriend, that would be fine too. So he sees all those benefits. He comes home after the last seminar. He doesn't go out and, you know, into the world creating results. No. Because the voice in his head is telling him, well, maybe it's best to basically go over everything we learned next week, and then the week after we really start doing some stuff that impact our lives. That's basically what happens. Week after, there's different stuff going on, and there are different reasons why we can't act right now. So the whole job of the reptile brain is protecting the individual of who he considers himself to be. And how the reptile brain does it is by kicking the can down the road. It's a very, very intelligent system. It doesn't go, well, we don't want to lose weight. We don't want to make a bunch of money. Let's stay the same. Hell no. It's really subtle. It's like, yeah, we want to kick ass, but first do this, and then we go out and kick ass. First master this, read that book, and then we're going out kicking ass. So maybe, who of you does actual sales, have sales conversations? Okay, did you ever notice that a pattern of people is, it's never now, it's always later. Like, oh, this sounds really good, but you know, our budget is all gone for this year, but let's talk in January. Oh, this sounds really good. Well, we're really busy with this, that, and the other thing, but we come back with you, and they almost never do. What it is, it's classical reptile brain. So, this goes a little deeper. So, if you are doing sales, first of all, there needs to be a connection. But most of the times, there's really not a connection. Why? Because the guy is in his head analyzing the conversation. Is this going in the right direction? Is this guy going to buy? Maybe I need to tell him about this. Maybe I need to tell him about that. You're not having a conversation with the person across the table. You're actually having a conversation with yourself. It's really fun to speak at events. Let me tell you why. Because I go over this stuff, and then you see people like, whoa, shit, immediately going in their heads, figuring this out. And the whole thing is, be present. Miracles happen if you're really, really present. So let me give you an example. Did anybody of you see an interview with Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, where he began to sweat like a lot? Anybody of you saw it? Ah, a couple of people over there. Yeah, you know, this was the case. There's an interview, big crowd, I think like a couple of thousand people. He's sitting in this red chair, 2 interviewers, and they ask him a question about privacy. And all of a sudden, he's really uncomfortable, you know, on his chair, really dry mouth, you know, starts sweating heavily. Whoa, he's really nervous. But why? Why is that happening? It's because he is having a conversation with himself about the question. Oh my God, shit, how am I going to answer this? Man, it's really sweaty. Oh my God, do they notice I'm sweating this heavily? Why didn't you pull off your sweater? Oh no, the hoodie doesn't come off. And he is basically in his head, stuck, like a deer in the headlight. Then you have Steve Jobs. He's sitting at the exact same chair, exact same interviewers, and they're giving him the exact same amount of difficult questions. They ask him about privacy. The guy doesn't go into his head, he is just present. And he answers that question brilliantly. To actually make an impact on people, you have to be out of your head, really in communication with the other person. I gave an example the other day. If you look at a guy who's standing at the bar, and he's single, he looks at, you know, the bar at the room, and he sees a really nice looking girl. And we're all watching it closely, and the guy says, I'm going over to that girl, ask her out for a date. So we're all watching the guy walk up to the girl, and what we see, which is tangible, is the girl and the guy having a conversation. But what we can't see and what drives the communication is the intangible stuff. There are multiple conversations going on at the same time. So one is the conversation the guy is having with the girl. That's one. Then 2 is the conversation the guy is having with himself about the girl and about the conversation. And the girl is doing the same thing. She is having a conversation with herself about the guy, about the conversation. So the guy is having a conversation, but actually he's in his head like, whoa, she really looks good from here. I hope she goes out to me on a date. And the girl is standing there. Shit, man, I'm not going out on a date. How can I ditch this guy? Like, that's what's happening. So regarding sales, first of all, if you want to make an impact on people, you need to have a real conversation, which means I'm going to give you one tool. And really, I'm really honest. The tool changes your life, but you have to master it, which means 10,000 hours. That was, Bruce Lee would say, 10,000 hours. And the tool is this, not that. So you're in a conversation with somebody, and here it pops up. Oh my God, tell them this, do that, say this. You know, be brilliant. Not that. And just stay out of your head in a conversation. Because if you're leading a sales team, I can guarantee you they never had a sales conversation with anybody except themselves. And it could be that they closed a lot of deals. But if I go a little bit deeper, is this, and maybe some people can relate. Who of you make a phone call to your parents or mother every once in a while? We're all good people. We do, you know, what we need to do, make a phone call. So, when I'm making a phone call with my mother, in the past, before I mastered this, I already knew how the conversation was going. Because she would come on the phone, oh, hi, son, how are you doing? And I would say, well, really well, how are you? And she would say, zijn gangetje. What's that in English? Well, it's going so-so. Okay, then she would discuss her health. She has a lot of back problems, you know. Then she would go into my two sisters. She was worried about, you know, she's always worried. And then she would say, I love you, and I would say, I love you too, and then we hang up the phone. That was the conversation. So what I noticed mastering the intangibles was I never had a real conversation with my mother. I was having a conversation with myself. Okay, now she's going to tell me about her health. And, well, actually she did. And now she's going to tell me how worried she is about my younger sister. And sometimes she did, sometimes she didn't. But the difference when you make a real connection is huge. So, now I schedule conversations with my mother as an opportunity to make a real connection. So the content of the conversation is basically the same. But now I really can experience my mother. So in the past, telling her I love her was a real awkward experience. It was the right thing to say as a son. But when she told me I love you, I experienced from my mother the same love as I have for my child. That was huge. So basically, what this does is this. You're going to have dinner or something to eat after this event. There's a huge difference between eating a steak or looking at the menu and seeing, you know, a dish with a steak. Looking at the menu is something different than eating the steak. It's the same as having a non-experience versus a real experience. It's a big difference. So, now we know a little bit about the reptile brain. It's protecting who the individual considers himself to be. So if we have somebody who is like 50 kilos overweight, and it's almost the 1st of January, and we set the goal to basically this year change our lives, and we really go out there, train, eat right, and be healthy again. The problem is this. Although somebody sees all the benefits of being healthy, they still don't deal with the reptile brain because this is what's happening. They confuse the reptile brain and the voice in their head with themselves. They collapse the two. So, what really happens is 98% of all the people with all their, you know, goals of losing weight and being healthy, never make it. They stop within 14 days. So what they do is basically listen to the reptile brain. Man, yeah, okay, but we have a party. We don't want to be a party pooper, you know, just eat some cake and drink some beer. It's all fine. And on Monday, we start again. And on Monday, the thing is kicking the can down the road again. That's the whole thing. So everything that can make an impact on your life, everything that can make an impact on sales, on results, you always have to deal with the reptile brain. I once was a consultant, and I did that. Made a lot of money with it. It was a lot of fun. But what wasn't fun and what was pretty painful was I would help companies, business owners, create a lot of results, came back a year after the job was done, and everything was back to old. It was the same as when I entered the company. And I was always thinking, how is it possible? Because although we want to change, a big part of us doesn't want to change. It always has reasons and excuses. This will never work for us. Well, we tried it, but in Ghent, that doesn't work. In Brussels, maybe, but not in Ghent. We all have reasons. So mastering the intangibles of communication, if you really want to make an impact, start noticing the voice in your head, separate yourself from the voice in your head, and just pay attention. You will notice like a thing going on in your head. Like what this thing will do, just so you notice. It's always judging. Oh, this guy, you know, I already heard this, I know this. This guy isn't really good. That guy was great. That's what the conversation is doing. It's always making sure you're not really paying attention. Who cares if you heard something before? Did you generate anything with it? Are you living it? Are you creating with it? That's the big thing. So when the guy told me, my client, like, ooh, sales and marketing people, tough crowd, they know it all. Well, in life, it doesn't really matter what you know. It's a good first step, let me tell you that. But you really have to go out and do necessary required actions. But the problem regarding sales is this, and basically every job. A lot of times, people don't do necessary required actions. The whole thing, the whole emphasis of the reptile brain is keeping things the same. First of all. So, when we really want to impact life and we need to do necessary required actions, a lot of things we need to do aren't really comfortable. I know PJ is doing triathlons. Well, you know, running, swimming, training, all those hours, it isn't really comfortable. Being on the couch watching Netflix is a bit more comfortable. So, let me end with this. This whole reptile brain thing makes people lazy. Although they can be busy 90 hours a week, they're still lazy. Laziness is driven by fear. The fear of being uncomfortable. So, and I end with this. 7 years ago, I did my last sales training. Never do it. I only work with executives. But I did a sales training for a team. 32 people in the room. It was a television station selling ads, selling advertisements on television. So we really needed to impact sales. What are you going to do? I said, well, I help them be more effective. So are we going to have a new strategy? Are we going to learn some new stuff like NLP? No. So what did we do? I showed up, 32 people in front of me. I said, so do you have a phone? Do you have your list with people you can call? They're all like, no. Well, it's a sales training. We need to train. So go out, get the list, get the phone, start calling people. Don't do anything. Just call people. Don't email, don't check your phone, don't do this, don't do that. Just call. That's it. For 2 hours. Came back, red ears, you know, sitting there in the chair. So what did I do? I wrote down how many appointments did you get? How many appointments did you get? Summed them all up. Owner of the company, the CEO, walks in. And he asked me, so how is this going? I said, well, I don't know. You judge. We have, I don't know how many appointments. like, let's say 150 appointments. And he looks at me and he's like, how is it possible? Well, we just did what was required. Most people don't do what's required. They do hide behind activities, a way to look good. We want to look good as people. The whole thing wants to look good. So, if there's anything you take out of this lecture, the big thing of the intangibles of communication is most people are having a conversation with themselves. You're not able to do what's required in a sales conversation. Why? Because there's no connection. You can't impact people when you're in your head. So, the big secret is this. Stay out of your head. Do what's required. Thank you for coming, and maybe see you in the future. Thank you.